Happy New Year, everyone. Welcome back to Stuff with Donna for 2016. Unfortunately, I did not make it to 100 subscribers as of December 31st, but right when I hit 100 subscribers, then I will still do the giveaway. So I'm going to be doing a new series for 2016, and I'm going to see how it goes. And what I'm basically going to be doing is that anytime I encounter a problem for someone, I'm actually going to record it and try to fix it. This consists of leaking or troubleshooting kind of thing, just to help people that have common problems with their markers. So my first episode for this series will be for the Invert Mini. This is a Gen 1. The new Empire Mini GS will kind of have the same problem, considering that they're the same internals pretty much. Maybe one's a little bit lighter, one's a bit bulkier, whichever one. I don't know the full science behind it, but I'm going to help you guys any way I can. So I've already took the liberty of taking out the panel, and when I bought this, I actually bought it yesterday. I bought it and the light would not come on, and there was no battery in it, and I didn't know that. And the seller said there was a huge, severe leak coming from the breech of the bolt. Now, I've already taken apart the bolt assembly, and I was actually quite surprised on what I found, and this might actually be a problem. So my theory is that the poppet just needs to be cleaned. Now, I asked the guy when I bought it off him. I bought this thing for $50, and it just came with the marker and then the barrel. I asked him, like, have you ever taken the whole entire thing apart, taken out the poppet, cleaned the poppet? He said no. So that's what my theory is going to be. I'm actually going to air it up right now. Wow. Okay, this thing needs a new gauge as well. So as you can see here, usually the minis are supposed to be running averagely, or out of the box, 200 psi. This gauge is actually a 600 psi gauge, so I'm actually gonna have to take that apart and get a new gauge on there. So I have my tank here. Now, mind you, minis actually can run SLP, super low pressure. It's not mandatory. They can run regular pressure coming out of a steel tank or anything like that, but I run SLP because my bob longs. So I'm going to air it up, and I do apologize. It does actually have a severe air leak, but yeah, so it's going to be loud. It'll only be a couple seconds, but now this thing does not have the on-off ASA. It's just the regular, completely stock ASA. So there you go. That was freaking loud. So obviously there's something wrong in here that I gotta fix. Alright, so let's get started. It was coming right out of the breech here. So obviously all this line here, all the inside internal air line is perfectly fine. I did not see what the pressure actually was sitting at because I don't trust this gauge. But I'm going to be taking out the whole entire bolt, showing you guys what parts could be the problem, what you guys should be doing to try to fix the problem, and at the end of the video I'm going to see and air it up again, see if it worked. So let's get started. This on here. So yeah, I've already taken it apart, and the surprise I got was, is that paint or is that lube? I had to put this right through the breech just to actually take it out. What I did was pretty much this, and even then it still didn't come out easy. So I mean, there is a crap load of whatever this is. I think it's paint, but I also think it's lube. Yeah, okay. So, I mean, look at that. I'm pretty sure that is paint. So I'm going to clean all this up. And it's also on the bolt guide here. I mean, some markers may require that much lube, but really minis do not. Minis aren't really finicky on what lube you use or how much lube you put on it, but that is a little bit too much lube if that is actually lube. So let's take this whole entire thing apart. I will show you guys or tell you guys what pieces are what. I'm going to show you guys what lube I will be using, and I will be showing you on maybe what the problem is. So this here is the bolt guide that I'm cleaning right now. Okay, so that's decently clean. I can go on and on and on about it. The bolt guide's actually not in that bad shape. There is a little bit of breech wear right here. You can see a little bit of silver on the camera. Sorry, on the camera. That's the wear. It's not breech wear. It's just bolt wear, really. So there's the bolt guide. Here is the bolt itself. This is all stock. I'm gonna wipe this right down. Wow, what is that? Maybe that's what the problem is. I've never seen that before. So it looks to me like the spring has really set right on the bolt. So that little line, I'm guessing, is actually from the spring. I've never seen that before. That's interesting. Alright, so here's the spring itself. Oh yeah, this looks like a mix of lube and paint. Wow, that is disgusting. I'm not gonna lie, I think this is actually one of the worst I've ever seen. Okay. So we got the spring, which is one side is actually smaller than the other. That's how it gets all that click. So that goes on there. You can hear the click. I can hear the click anyway. I'm not sure about you guys. And it actually stays there. This one is just a lot more free. See, that side falls off. That stays on. So bolt spring, bolt guide, right? Way to take out the bolt guide, or take apart the bolt guide. There's this back cap. You unscrew that. That's also a way to adjust your velocity. Unscrew that out. Back cap. In here should be a spring. Yep, so poppet spring, nice little small spring. Put that to the side. And then you're going to take an Allen key, put it through the actual bolt guide, pop out the poppet. So that's the poppet. There are different types of poppets. This one's an inline poppet, as for G6R, E-Tax are stack poppets. Me personally, I like the inline poppets a little bit better, such as the Axe or the Vis or the Mini. I don't know, they're just a little bit smoother, get more airflow. Even though they may not be as slim as the G6R E-Tax, but they are a little bit smoother, and I find they're a bit more efficient. Even though the G6R is the most efficient gun out there that I know of. Okay, so now that's all clean. So what my theory is on why it's actually leaking, and if you actually seen in my M2 video, my very first shooting video of it, you notice that someone actually has a mini and they have a problem with their mini. What actually happened was that the poppet, they didn't know much about the mini, so they'd never actually taken it apart like I have here. So the poppet pretty much would sit in here, and if you actually don't lube it enough, it can actually open up just the smallest bit. Well, even that smallest bit would actually cause it to leak, or even be inconsistent, or not shooting as nice, or drop off, or anything like that. So the poppet, I recommend usually every 5 cases you can take apart the whole poppet just like I have here, and just clean it, re-lube it, and it should be fine. Empire Invert has recommended doing it every 10 cases, but I just like to be precautious and do it every 5. Completely up to you. It's your marker. You can do whatever you want. I just like to maintain my markers as much as I can. Because the last mini I actually had, the Mini GS, I put 9 cases through it, and there was a little bit of wear on, I think it was, there's a little bit of wear on the bolt, and then there was a little bit of wear on the bolt guide, which is completely normal. My G6R has wear as well, and I have about 14 cases through it. So just going to clean the actual breech itself. Yeah, that looks fine. Okay, so the lube I use for this is usually the Planet Eclipse silicone lubricant, or Tech T Suave. I like this. I use it on my M2. It's very nice. For this, I'm just going to use the silicone lube. So let's start with the poppet first. Now, the thing is about these, they are very nice. The poppets are a pretty good design. I just wish they kind of put like a silicone sealing just around the edges here. That way, if it doesn't make a seal, well, then it can just stick right to it, or not stick to it, but actually get that little bit more seal with the silicone lube. That way, it actually prevents a little bit more leaks. But you know, they still do a pretty good job. So just need a dab on that O-ring. Whatever's left on your fingers, just kind of rub it on the seat. Plug it back in. As you can see there, it's in there. Grab your spring. Spring, you can kind of just flop it in there. You just grab an Allen key and you just place it right in. Just gotta make sure it's straight and it's in its seating. There you go. So you can see there, it's in its seating. Spring is straight up. You don't need to lubricate this. There is no ring right here, but it's not really needed. So you screw that in. And I usually have it flush, but I like to put it maybe 1 or 2 turns in. So that's pretty much the bolt guide already done. All right. So basically what happens, hopefully you guys can see this, I have an Allen key in here, and what the solenoid does is that it tells the air to actually press in. I don't know what the exact science is, but so if I can get you there, guys, there you go. So pretty much what happens is that the air actually flows through, opens up, and then that's when the air actually goes right into the bolt, and that's what makes it fire. Like I said, I don't know the full science about it, but that's pretty much how it works. Okay, so a nice little stream right onto the actual bolt guide. Make sure you get all the O-rings. These O-rings are actually stationary, so it's not like you actually need to lube it, but I like to lube it just to make sure. Okay, so that's the bolt guide completely done, and now it's just maintenance video. Okay. All on the bolt. Now these ones actually do move because it slides back and forth, and then the bolt just sits right on here, and these ones actually, they don't move, but the bolt moves onto it. Slide that on, slide that on, and that's pretty much the whole entire bolt assembly right there. Clean my hands off. As you can see, there's a pin right on the Mini, and then there's a hole. You just line that hole with the pin. Grab your screw. Screw the bolt right back in. Make it nice and hand tight. You don't need to crank it, but alright, now I'm going to test this out once again. That's funny. Okay, welcome back. That was a cut, unfortunately. So basically what happened, I took apart the whole entire bolt assembly, cleaned out the poppet. After I actually cut out, I did air it up and there was still leaking. I did find the problem. And I have to say, I bought this thing for 50 bucks and it was in the absolute worst condition I have ever found a marker or bought a marker in my entire life. With the, I'm not even sure if it was all paint or lube all within the bolt assembly, but there was, it was actually leaking out of the frame here. It was leaking, the solenoid was actually completely open. It was leaking from the ASA down here, and the pressure was actually way past 200 psi, and the recommendation from Empire and Mini is 200 psi, no higher, but you can actually drop it down to lower. So what I did within the cut, I've actually taken apart the whole entire thing. It's actually not much of a common problem with Minis, but what I did is I took apart the whole entire frame in half, took out the two screws right here. Sorry, my phone actually just turned off for some reason. So I took off the whole entire frame, lubed up the O-ring that is here that actually transfers from the solenoid into the actual bolt assembly, which helps it fire. I've actually put some Dow 55 on this O-ring here that the two connect. I replaced the O-ring that's here that connects to the ASA, put some Dow 55 on there because it was leaking. That fixed it. There was actually no leaks here, but I just put Dow 55 just to make sure the O-ring swells and makes that nice little connection. I took off the old gauge, which was actually up to 600 psi. Usually it's supposed to be up to 300 psi on a gauge. So now this gauge is actually now 300 psi, so that works fine. I adjusted the ASA. Now it's actually about 180 psi, which is fine. I fixed the frame, the air leak from the frame, so that's good. And I think that was pretty much it. So what happened was that the way it kind of works with the solenoid is that there's actually like a little, I want to say it's like a pin. And what happens is that right when you push that trigger, the magnet tells the board to actually tell the solenoid to make that pressure go up, make the pressure go into the bolt assembly, open up the poppet, and then the poppet opens up, and then goes through the bolt, and then the bolt shoots it forward with a gust of air and then makes the ball go forward. So that's like a ballpark on how it works. However, the solenoid, because the pressure was actually so high, it kept the solenoid open and made it stuck open. And that's actually really bad for the solenoid. It can actually destroy the solenoid. So what I did is I kind of reset the solenoid, and it's actually now making a good seal. So I've kind of went through about 1500 psi in my actual tank. So I'm actually going to air it up again, and you'll hear no leaks. As before, it was just gusting right through the actual bolt assembly, and now there's no leaks anywhere, and it's now sitting at 185 psi on the gauge. So for $50, I didn't actually have to replace anything except for maybe an O-ring or two, but for $50 I got this thing for a steal, especially since I was actually able to repair it. So there's no leaks. There is a little bit of pressure in my tank, but there's no leaks. You can even hear it degas right when I take it apart. Hear that? So that means that there was actually air in the tank. So even though this is kind of like a failed experiment for this series of common problems with markers, pretty much what my theory was is that it was actually the poppet that was actually staying open, not being lubed, and that's a common problem for people that don't get more into their markers and actually learn about it. So this marker is now ready to go. I just have to put it all back together, put the battery in, put the crap, I forget what that's called now. Put the foregrip back together, put the actual grips back together, and then the marker is actually ready to go. So thank you guys very much for watching. This is an experiment on the Mini. I thought I'd give it a go, but it's doing a lot better now. So this is Stuff with Dono. Thank you very much for watching.